So I had a lot to say about tonight's episode. I kind of felt like a lot happened. So let's just kind of kick it off with Brian and Jade. Brian threw his feelings out there for Jade, and Jade kind of threw her feelings out there for Brian. Brian had mentioned that Jade was one of the best looking females in the house, which I completely agree with, and also think she's probably one of the most seductive females in the house as well. During the challenge, Jade also kind of mentioned that if given the opportunity, she would go on a date with Brian if Big Brother allowed it within the house and kind of set something up. So I just kind of felt like if they're going to hook up, they better do it before the end of the week, before Big Brother takes Brian outside the house. But also in this episode, I kind of wanted to talk about the importance of an argument in the house and how it can change around the whole game for certain players in the house. So one person that kind of had my attention during this whole episode was Harry. With the way she kind of started out, it was mainly like she was lifeless. It kind of felt like everybody who was going up to her, trying to cheer her up, she was kind of down because everybody's kind of been getting on her the whole time and I guess just trying to split her and Nick up, and she's kind of been down about, you know, everybody getting on her, period. But she's been laying in her bed, hasn't been saying much, even though people have been coming up and offering advice to her. You know, she's just kind of been doing her own thing. So there was kind of a blow up in the house with Chloe and the nominations and them putting her up. She kind of had a meltdown and Brian kind of had her back during this point. When he had her back, he ended up arguing with people who he came in the house with, which was pretty much Helen and also Mark. They were kind of going back and forth. It was kind of like them versus the rest of the house. Mainly Chloe wanted to explain what was going on and how she felt about the whole nominations, but she didn't really feel like she was getting the chance to explain her side. So that's kind of when Brian jumped in to try to have her back. He just kind of went off on Helen and also Mark, and then it just kind of started a fight, and Chloe was kind of looking at it like, you know, what did I just start? So it kind of drove Brian to a point to where he's kind of felt like throughout this whole time where they've been in the house a few days, he hasn't been involved in the decision-making process. So with that said, you know, a lot of the housemates are kind of looking at him as like the one person who they can side with in the house. And he pretty much had Chloe's back the whole time. Helen and Mark were upset because he had Chloe's back, and they were mainly trying to say that he was the person who kind of suggested Chloe at first. But, you know, with this, Helen and also Jack, they got into a fight. I thought that was hilarious. And I've been kind of waiting to see Helen get into an argument with Jack since I found out she was going into the house. But kind of going back to Harry for a minute, you know, with all this arguing and a lot of tension raising within the house, it kind of took the spotlight off of her. So you kind of see her kind of changing, and, you know, she was kind of siding with Jack and also Nick and Chloe. You kind of seen her like hugging on them and smiling, and it's kind of like the life was brought back to Harry in the house. And I kind of felt like if it wasn't for that argument, this would have never happened. She would have probably still been in the bed crying and not saying anything to anybody. But once Brian said he was leaving the house, you know, she kind of didn't want him to leave because she kind of feels like if he goes, there would be nobody to stick up for her or the rest of the housemates, because they all kind of feel like Mark and also Helen and everybody else may attack the rest of the housemates. I kind of felt like what he was saying about Chloe was kind of on point a little bit. You know, she hasn't really done too much in the house. She's kind of laid low this whole time, and he said she was boring. But I just kind of feel like, you know, she really hasn't done too much in the house, and I know he had mentioned that she's always talking about her boyfriend. That I can't really say I've heard a lot of. since I'm not in the house myself, but from the way it's come off on TV, she hasn't really mentioned her boyfriend too much. But that kind of brings up another issue. I feel like with Big Brother, I don't know why they put people in the house that they know are never going to hook up with people and that come into the house in a relationship that they're probably not going to break. Now, I'm not saying people should go and break relationships, but it's kind of like for the people who come in to committed relationships that are serious, it's kind of like they're pretty much going to lay low in the house and they're not going to do anything that's going to mess up their relationship. Although we have seen instances where people have come into the house and broken up relationships because of people who they got with in the house, or people who they're messing around with. But anyways, I kind of feel like with Chloe, she's been laying low, and that was one of the reasons in putting her up. So if it wasn't for this argument, Harry would probably be going for sure. I don't really know who's going to go now between Harry and her, and I know they still got some other people to put up on a block, so I'm kind of interested to see who's going to go up from this point. But share your thoughts on Harry and how do you feel about her and the way she's kind of changed since the blow up in the house. How do you feel about Brian and Jade? Do you think they're going to hook up before Brian leaves the house? And how did you feel about the Helen and also Jack fight as well? Also, do you feel like Helen and also Mark was in the wrong for what they was arguing with Brian about the whole Chloe nomination? Share your thoughts, and until next time, this has been Jacob Rob AJ, and I'll see ya.